Today on Artifactually Speaking, Bluebeard? Arr. I'm archaeologist Dr. Brad Hafford from the University of Pennsylvania. And I am here at the ancient city of Nimrud, or Kalhu. I'm sitting in front of the large stone lion sculptures that are at the east entrance of the Ishtar temple. This was found much farther into the Ishtar temple, but I thought that these would be a good background. And for good reason, I think. This object is of a material type I've talked about before. It is blue frit or faience. It's a mixture of silicates, and there are colorants in here. Sometimes people call this Egyptian blue. That's really the colorant, not the material, but we call it a number of things. It's not faience either, not true faience. So I think frit is the most neutral term for it. It's, I guess, kind of like the plastic of the ancient past. Not quite, but similar to clay. It is plastic, and then you fire it at a pretty high heat, not high enough to vitrify. If you got this high enough, it might actually turn into glass or similar, because the construct here, the materials, are similar to that you would make glass. It's just not heated as high. And then it becomes a kind of self-glazing, although this isn't all that shiny. You do find it in Egypt quite a bit, and so it has typically been referred to as Egyptian, but they made it here in Assyria as well. Fairly common material, really, and the color, of course, is quite striking. They liked it a lot. There are people who say they didn't have a word for blue, people didn't recognize blue, but of course they recognized it. I think the Mesopotamians typically referred to the color as that of the stone, Lapis. They really did like that blue. It wasn't all that common, it had to come from far away. So they started to make a kind of imitation of it. There are texts in an early period that talk about lapis from the mine versus lapis from the kiln, and from the kiln it's essentially this material. You can get it a light greenish or darker green. Typically you get a blue. This is quite a bright blue. You can get a darker blue as well. It depends on what you use to make the color itself. This is a pretty large piece of it though, and it came from an area that was somewhat disturbed above a wall. We found another piece a bit earlier that is quite a bit smaller, but it joins in with this. And the decoration are these curled, at first I thought maybe rosettes, because they like rosettes, but it's not. What it is are the curls of a beard. The Assyrians liked to show very fancy curled beards on their powerful people, and maybe they actually did wear beards like that. Maybe they curled them. I'm not quite sure how they would make it stay, some kind of wax or something. In Egypt, for instance, there were false beards. Hatshepsut is shown wearing a false beard. There's a line that shows that she would attach this because she was pharaoh. So the beard showed power, and I think that's true for Assyria as well. And maybe they had false ones that were prepared that you could put on for a special event. I don't know, but I think they may also have decorated their own real beards and tried to make them like this. Regardless, we find them on their sculptures a lot, and Lamassu, now these may have been actually just lions. We found lions over there, but Lamassu can be either a bull body or a lion body, and then they've got a human head, and it's a man with usually a horned headdress and a very thick, long beard with all these elaborate curls. This might be from something similar. It is big enough that I wonder was it a full sculpture, or was it just an inlay on the side that showed the king's face or something like that? Every time we excavate something here at Nimrud, I tend to find that Austin Henry Layard found something very similar nearly 200 years ago. And there is a piece almost exactly like this in the British Museum right now. And they say that it may have been on a wooden statue or inlaid into wood. And I think that could very well be true. And it could mean that that was a cult statue of a male deity. Interestingly, quite a few of the pieces of this frit that I have found have these curls. So it's pretty common to have a broken beard out there. So maybe it was inlaid into another one to give color to a stone face and then a blue beard. I don't really know, and I don't know that much about Assyrian art, so I shouldn't be mouthing off too much. All I know is that we found this, and it's pretty big. It should be fairly large. If this is the beard and it came down to my chest, the face would be about life size, I would think. Well, I find it a fascinating material and a fascinating design. The curls at the base, you can see how they're gathered together. So maybe each one was individually braided, and that's how it held in reality if they actually braided their beards and curled them as braids. I think it's interesting to think of what they might actually have looked like. This would have taken a long time to do, and I think very special people would probably wear beards like this. Well, I hope you've enjoyed examining this blue faience beard with me, and I hope you'll join me again next time on Artifactually Speaking.